Ezekiel Emanuel has been appointed to Joe Biden's COVID-19 task force. Now, some of you, like me, may have gone, the name sounds awfully familiar, and it should sound familiar. Ezekiel Emanuel is the brother of former Chicago mayor and former Obama chief in staff, Rahm Emanuel, a well-known progressive Democrat and, in my opinion, moron. Up until now, I've actually had no problems with the staff that Joe Biden had been appointing to his COVID task force. From everything that I've read and seen on these members, there's nothing particularly controversial about any of them, except for one. Now, I originally overlooked Ezekiel because I couldn't find his Twitter page. It may or may not exist out there somewhere, and if it does, please, if you could link it in the comments below, that would be fantastic. So I originally overlooked this. Someone pointed out to me that he said some things that I found quite concerning. Originally, I will admit, I was a bit skeptical, but after some research, I dug down and was able to find some information on the man himself. Before we dive into the article, here I would ask that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Doing these things doesn't take very much time at all and is absolutely, completely free, and it just is a really, really great way of helping the channel out. If you enjoy the content, it just really helps the algorithm pick up this content and distribute it to people who are interested in it. So here we go. Biden COVID-19 task force member warns against vaccine nationalism. What does that mean? Now, we've heard that term nationalism often associated with fascism. Where does that arrive from? It sounds like some kind of ideology. It sounds like it stems from some kind of ideology that's left of center. Let's go on here. President-elect Joe Biden's coronavirus task force member, Ezekiel Emanuel, recently co-authored a paper that advocates against vaccine nationalism. The paper, published in September by Science magazine, calls for pharmaceutical companies and governments involved in vaccine production to engage in the fair priority model, as opposed to giving priority distribution to the local at-risk population. That sounds weird. It sounds almost as if he wouldn't be prioritizing America first. It almost sounds like a very leftist social justice view of looking at the world, the equity of not only of opportunity, but equity of outcome. It's almost as if they think that for some reason we shouldn't be prioritizing America, and that in fact we should be giving the vaccine to perhaps poor countries that can't afford it. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to. In fact, I believe that we have a moral obligation to do so. However, not at the expense of American lives. We must always take care of ourselves first. Let's go on. The model calls on both groups to engage in a broad and equitable distribution of the eventual vaccine and critiques the World Health Organization's current two distribution methods. There's that word again, equitable. One model prioritizes population size for how the vaccine will be distributed, while the other prioritizes healthcare workers, anyone over 65, and adults with pre-existing conditions. I think that's a bit of a typo there. With regard to vaccine nationalism, the paper warns, public sentiment in some countries for retaining vaccines developed within their borders is strong, and many governments will also try to obtain vaccines produced elsewhere. But an ethical framework has broad relevance, even in the face of nationalist attitudes. I really don't see that as a nationalist attitude. I guess literally in the sense that we're putting our nation first. I guess you could call it that, but generally nationalist tends to be closely associated with fascism academically. So I guess technically it's nationalist. However, I don't see that on the applied scale here. Um, and I don't think it's nationalist to want to take care of your own people first. I think that's merely a self-preservation technique that has been ingrained in our human DNA since the beginning of time. Nor do I think that it's wrong to look out for your own first. We are a country that relies on each other for survival. We 100% need to be applying this vaccine to every man, woman, child, elderly person, I don't care, everybody in the US. And once we are completely immune and we have extra vaccines left over, then we can start helping other people. Let's go on. Rather than simply asserting that might makes right, governments typically appeal to national partiality, a country's right and duty to prioritize its own citizens, it reads. Absolutely, that's what we need to be doing. What you end up doing is giving a lot of vaccines to rich countries, which doesn't seem like the goal of fair and equitable distribution, Emanuel said of the model. It is not clear if Emanuel's framework is being considered by the Biden transition team while building its own coronavirus response effort and vaccine preparations. God, I fucking hope not. The oncologist and bioethicist was tapped to join Biden's COVID-19 advisory board on Monday, though he is no stranger to advising presidents. Besides acting as chief architect of the Affordable Care Act under President Barack Obama, he was tapped by President Trump in early 2017 to advise him as a differing opinion on healthcare policy when he was first taking office. No doubt a favor in both of those scenarios. With close ties to Rahm Emanuel, there's absolutely no doubt. Remember, chief architect of the Affordable Care Act under President Barack Obama, this was the death panel guy. He was the one calling for a death panel to determine who gets to live and who gets to die. This is not the man we want in charge of people's lives. When we lose sight of what is important, of what is valuable, and that is the life of every American, we have completely absolutely just fucking lost our minds if we're actually considering valuing one human life over another. You ask any doctor, any credible doctor, and outright that violates their Hippocratic oath. This man is not a doctor. He is a sham. He should be removed. And Joe Biden, if you're listening, please appoint someone else. Honestly, I have no problems with everybody else on his team. They all seem incredibly qualified and are very well renowned and respected in all of their fields. Ezekiel Emanuel appears to be the only one that contrares to this. Thank you for watching. I hope you consider liking and subscribing. Have a fantastic day.